Radio. This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
It's Oh Behave with Arden Moore, the show that teaches you how to have harmony in the household with your pets. Join Arden as she travels coast to coast to help millions better understand why cats and dogs do what they do. Get the latest scoop on famous faces, their perfectly pampered pets, and who's walking who in Rin Tin Tinseltown. From famous pet experts and best-selling authors to television and movie stars, you'll get the latest buzz from wagging tongues and tails, garner great pet tips, and have a doggone fur-flying fun time. So get ready for the pause and applause as we unleash your Oh Behave host, America's pet edutainer, Arden Moore.
Welcome to the Oh Behave Show on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Arden Moore. Now, no place on the planet is safe from natural disasters. I mean, even places we call paradise, like the island of Maui. Far too many lives were lost when the wildfires ravaged the town of Lahaina on August 8th, and the recovery is still ongoing. That's why I'm very honored to have on my show today a real hero for all cats everywhere, including Maui. Please, at this time, welcome the co-founder of Neighborhood Cats, Bryan Kortis. Welcome to the show, Bryan.
Hi, Arden. Thanks so much for having me.
And where exactly are you? Because I know Neighborhood Cats is based in New York City, but you're a man with a suitcase.
Yeah, my wife and I, Susan Richmond, who's the executive director of Neighborhood Cats, and my wife, we're based...
Very well put.
Executive director first, wife. No, just kidding. We're based on Maui. We moved here several years ago from New York City to kind of start a new chapter for Neighborhood Cats, and we've stayed ever since.
And for those catching this on my Arden Moore YouTube, he is wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Move over, Tom Selleck. All it's missing in this is a big, thick mustache.
Right. It's one of the great things about living in Hawaii is, you could go to court and wear this, and it'd be fine.
Well, August 8th, not a great day, was it? You're in Maui, right? So
Yes.
How far away were you from the fires?
Well, the fires were all over the island.
Yeah.
Obviously, the most devastating one was in Lahaina. But when we went to bed that night, we saw 20, 30-foot flames several miles away from where we were.
Wow.
And, kind of hoped that they wouldn't be coming our way. And where I am, escaped any destruction. There were some evacuations, but nothing got destroyed. But there were a couple, so, I'd say 2 or 3 areas that got hit pretty badly, but nothing like the town of Lahaina.
I mean, the images of people having to jump into the water. I mean, years ago, I lived in Oceanside, California. I was about a mile from the ocean. I always thought if there's a wildfire that hit, I would drive and just go in the water. And many people did that, didn't they?
Well, many people had no choice. There was almost no warning. They thought the fire had been extinguished earlier in the day. So when it picked up again, there was nobody there to watch it. And then the winds were unusually high that day with 50 to 80 mile an hour gusts. And they just blew the fire right down into the town, which being an old town, there's a lot of wooden structures. And it just ignited in minutes. And since there was no warning, people just ran outside, and it's a town with only a couple of egress points. So people got caught in traffic jams by the ocean, and yeah, some of them, jumped into the water. And fortunately, I think most of them made it, but some did not.
And then you've got the second aspect. We're worried about the people, but we know that our four-legged friends kept us sane for many years, especially during COVID. And also the community cat colonies are also, so there's sentient beings out there that needed help. So August 8th, what happened on August 9th for you?
Well, the few weeks right after the fire were really very difficult for those of us in the animal welfare community because the emergency management officials would not allow us in to rescue pets or community cats. Really, I think what happened was the fire was so devastating. I mean, literally, the landscape is almost entirely ash and charred metal and some cinder blocks.
That's crazy.
And that's it for miles. So there was this assumption that, nobody and no animal could have survived. And they didn't want search and rescue teams in because they were searching for bodies and remains and, this whole thing about that might be disturbed. And it was really very ignorant because the people who would have gone in at that time are highly trained.
Exactly.
How to function in disaster areas. And it turned out they were completely wrong. There are hundreds of animals. There's already been like 700 animals pulled out of the burn zone, and there are still several hundred more that remain in there. So with the cats, what we think happened was when the fire started, the ones that were outdoors jumped into the storm drains. And
Smart.
they rode out the fire underground and came back up. But they didn't allow search and rescue in for 3 weeks. And then search and rescue went in and just started grabbing anything with 4 legs that was moving. There were so many more than had been expected that the Maui Humane Society, the local shelter, became overwhelmed in a matter of days. They had to put a stop to the rescue part of it because they had no space and no idea what to do with these hundreds of cats. So at that point, they still wasn't a full understanding of how many were left. So they asked Neighborhood Cats to take over the operations in the fire zone. And we agreed to do that. And the first thing we did was start putting feeding stations out all over the place.
Smart. Yes. Yeah.
So they had access to food and water. And we used like as high quality food as we could get from the donations and just try to keep them alive. And then slowly over the next couple of weeks, we realized there are hundreds of cats that are still out here. And since then, we've been kind of slowly extracting them, or I shouldn't say slowly, but at a pace that the local shelter system can handle, because we don't want to crash them again. And we don't want hundreds of cats getting sick sitting in little cages. So that's kind of where we're at right now. 2.5 months later is every night we go in with trappers. Every day we have people feeding. And as capacity is available to pull them out, we do that, and we prioritize right now the more urgent cases. So any medical cases, most of them are taken care of by now. Any young kittens, and fortunately there are very few, and any cats that we can identify with match with owners, we're pulling them out. So it's a very selective, as space, sometimes a whole block of space opens up and then we'll go clear out a whole area and not do selective.
What a logistic challenge. Everyone, we're speaking with Bryan Kortis, and he is with Neighborhood Cats. He and his wife, Susan, they're based on Maui. They've done a lot of great work. We're going to find out later in the show in New York City and beyond. This is a cat man do. He knows how to help cats, and you're helping pet cats and community cats. And I'm sure you found dogs too.
A few. I haven't personally, but the dogs that survived were pulled out pretty quickly.
Okay.
And we're probably talking a few dozen dogs. They had a much rougher time as compared to hundreds of cats, and lots of community cats too. Yeah, we don't, we treat them all equally.
I like that. Hey, we are talking again with Bryan Kortis of Neighborhood Cats. I want you after the show to please go to neighborhoodcats.org. We're going to find out more and how you can help after we take this break. So you all know the drill. Just sit, purr. We'll be right back.
Time for a pause. 4 furry ones, actually. Sit and stay. All behave. We'll be right back.
Take a bite out of your competition. Advertise your business with an ad in Pet Life Radio podcasts and radio shows. There is no other pet-related media that is as large and reaches more pet parents and pet lovers than Pet Life Radio. With over 7 million monthly listeners, Pet Life Radio podcasts are available on all major podcast platforms. And our live radio stream goes out to over 250 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, and other streaming apps. For more information on how you can advertise on the #1 pet podcast and radio network, visit PetLifeRadio.com/advertise today.
Let's talk pets on PetLifeRadio.com. All Behave is back with more tail-wagging ways to achieve harmony in the household with your pets. Now, back to your fetching host, America's pet edutainer, Arden Moore.
Welcome back to the O Behave Show on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Arden Moore. He's been a guy on my radar for a while, and I'm finally got him on my show. I have no excuse. This man has, for many, many years, been helping and championing all kinds of cats with the program called Neighborhood Cats. And before we dive more into Maui, can you explain a little bit about how you and Susan came to create Neighborhood Cats and what's it all about?
Well, it started with, I lived on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and I wasn't really involved that much in animal welfare, but I knew some friends in the rescue community, and I was literally walking down a block in my neighborhood and past an empty lot, and I saw a bunch of kittens playing in the grass. So my thought was I would try to help them and pass them along to my rescue friends, and that would all get taken care of. Right?
Yeah, famous last words.
Yeah. I always like to say that I did what any good citizen would do, which is I try to find somebody else to take care of the problem.
Okay, you're honest. All right.
Well, the more I dug into the situation, I discovered there were 30 feral cats living in this inner courtyard, and there were no services available. And it was a situation at that time in New York City that was repeated literally thousands of times in every borough. So there was no opportunity to rescue them or put them in a shelter or find them homes. And I was told about trap, neuter, return as an alternative. And actually, the funny thing is, at the time, I was like, that didn't sound like a very good idea to me, to take cats and fix them and put them back into this kind of dense urban neighborhood. But left with no other choice, myself and a couple of neighbors were working together. We were not going to euthanize, perfectly healthy animals.
It's hard. Yeah, I wouldn't.
So we caught them and we fixed them and we put them back, and it turned out to be very successful. It solved all the problems on that particular block. And then the rest of the neighborhood on the Upper West Side wanted to do the same thing. So we went from colony to colony throughout the Upper West Side, and then that was very successful. There was dramatically lower intake into the city shelter from our neighborhood. So then the city animals agency started working with us, and then we started working with the ASPCA, and it just kept growing and growing from there.
Well, what were you doing to earn a paycheck at the time? What was your career?
I was working part-time as an attorney, doing appellate law, actually out of California, of all places. And I was also doing video production. I was a director and editor for a small journalistic production company that did sort of New York stories and distributed them internationally.
So here's a legal beagle helping cats?
Yeah. I certainly enjoy working with cats more than working with lawsuits. And
at least you see the claws and fangs coming, right, from the cat. Cats don't hide their feelings. That we could go on that tangent for a while, but there was a calling, wasn't it, Bryan?
I've always had an affinity for cats.
Mm-hmm.
I since I was a young child, I've always had cats as close companions. And
do you remember your first cat's name?
Yes, my first cat's name was Spot.
Please tell me the cat was black and white or what? What was that? Was real original Spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we
back in the day.
I was 7 at the time, so I give myself a little break.
What was Spot like?
No, the black and white cat was Domino.
Oh, of course. Okay.
Spot was tabby and white, and he had a big spot on his nose. So, but he was my buddy. He would hang out with me all day, and they'd go out at night and run around the neighborhood, and then just hang with me during the daytime and stuff. So, after that, I always had. Once I went to school or graduated from college, I should say, I just always had cats, either from a girlfriend or my own or a rescue or. So stepping into helping community cats was kind of a natural step, sure.
Now, people need to know the definition of community cats. I know folks think of feral cats versus cats that live in homes, but it is 2023. So help us out.
So community cats is sort of this catch-all term for cats that are living independently outside of, your traditional homes. So you wouldn't call them pets. But they have a connection to people. They have caretakers who come by and provide them with food and water, usually on a daily basis. And what we've learned when I started doing this work 20 years ago, we used to call all the cats on the streets feral.
Yeah.
Meaning they were unsocialized, and you had to trap them in order to get them spayed and neutered. But what we've learned over the years is that there's such a wide spectrum of cats that live in this kind of semi-independent way, and they range from very friendly to extremely wild. So community cat is sort of an encompassing term.
Gotcha.
For all the cats that live outside what we would consider a traditional home.
Well, I live in a community in Dallas, and I have to say morning and evening, we have a group now. We give them names. We have
sure.
Cheeto. We have Bob because he has a little bit of a tail, not much. When several others, we actually brought in a cat name. We named Baxter, who had been on the streets apparently 10 years and loved every time we walked our dogs. Baxter, this fluffy tuxedo cat, would follow us. He's now in our house. He's been living with us for 2 years. And he's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm happy. I'm happy. But you're right. There is a range, but they seem to wear invisible watches and they know when you're going to put the food and water out. And then they kind of hide and look for you. And then you develop this little trust, I guess. I won't make you sing the song from Pink, Trust Fall, but he's like, thank you. But think about that. I mean, what do you think about when a cat develops a trust, a community cat? That's a pretty neat gift to you.
There have been actually some research on this, but also just based on my own personal experience, that the bond between what we call a caretaker and their community cats is just as strong as the bond between a traditional owner and a pet.
Wow.
And if historically, when animal management and animal control efforts have failed, when it comes to cat overpopulation, it's because they haven't taken that bond into account. So if some municipality tries to pass a feeding ban, they're like, okay, we're gonna get rid of all the stray cats by making it illegal to feed them.
That's horrible.
And it's been tried hundreds and hundreds of times, and there isn't a single example of success. And the reason is because they're not taking into account that the bond between the person and the cats is so strong. And if you don't put a police officer on every corner 24/7, they're going to find a way to feed their cats. They're not going to let them starve. And that's why feeding bans don't work, or trying to remove all the cats from the community, whether it's for euthanasia, or that's usually what it ends up being. But even if you could put them all in some magical sanctuary somewhere, that still wouldn't work, because people are not going to cooperate, especially if the likely outcome is death. So they'll not tell you how many cats are there, or they'll feed them before the trapping, or they'll trip the traps, or they'll do everything they can to protect their animals. So when we do Trap, Neuter, Return, which is what Neighborhood Cats is the program that we're behind, that brings the people who care for the cats into the process.
Right. Be proactive, because cats are taking care of rats and other things. And, I'm on Team Neighborhood Cats.
Yeah. There's a lot of benefits to maintaining cats in certain areas. Certainly there's rodent control, but then there's just the emotional bonds. It's just, survey after survey shows that people prefer to leave the cats where they are. And for every person that's complaining about them being there, there's 4 or 5 who like having the cat in their lives. So just the way you did when you would take your dog for a walk, and I'm sure you really enjoyed having Baxter follow you.
He walked better off leash than our dogs did on leash. And you could tell he was, we were thinking, this cat had been dumped. Somebody dumped this cat. That's probably the story. We also had brought in a one-eyed cat named Mort, whose ear was tipped. And everybody knows the left ear tip means they've been taking away their family jewels, and they will not populate. Leave them alone. Just feed them and all. And he lasted a couple years. So we sort of scout out when there seems to be a friendly outdoor cat, and you can tell, and acclimating to our cats and dogs. But we've trained our dogs to think cats are gods. But Baxter, can you imagine living for 10 years and then finally landing a home? He's the sweetest boy ever.
Well, there's a lesson there too, which is that cats, that feral is a behavioral description. It's not a biological state.
Very
and
good.
The same cat can transition from feral to tame and back to feral again if put out in the wild. So it's really important to treat each cat as an individual that is going to evolve and develop on their own.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to find out more about how people who love cats, and we know these disasters are happening everywhere, can help Neighborhood Cats help the cats. So sit, purr. We'll be right back.
Time for a walk on the red carpet, of course. All Behave will be back in a flash right after these messages.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food. Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. cattreetray.com.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Holy hound dog! Hi, this is Burt Ward, and you're listening to the O Behave Show with Arden Moore on Pet Life Radio. Listen every week, same pet time, same pet channel.
We're back from the lot. Just checked the paper and we had a record showing at the box. The letterbox, that is. Now back to O Behave. Here's Arden.
Welcome back to the O Behave Show on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Arden Moore. I have met a guy. His name is Bryan Kortis, living proof that real men love cats. And this whole disaster in Maui, I know it's awful when you can't just go right in, but the cats seem to be, many of them, seem to be very savvy. I've seen some clips. There was a cat named Mambo that is actually like a white and tortie cat and came out and looked like a gray cat because of all the soot and ashes, and was able to be rescued and reunited with people. What's the importance of, I know it sounds basic, get that cat microchipped?
Oh, in a disaster scenario like this, it's everything. Because otherwise, so if we catch a cat and they have a microchip and it's current, it's an easy reunification, right? It's a phone call. When they don't have a microchip or it's out of date, then we're looking at photographs and we're trying to, just try to match a gray tabby with a gray tabby,
Yeah.
And then during the disaster, people lost a lot of their photos. So they didn't have anything for us to match them with. And then in the disaster scenario of this scale, a lot of people are displaced. So they move off the island or they move into a hotel, and then it becomes difficult to find them. And the whole reunification process is really, really difficult. Whereas with a microchip, the current microchip, it would be quite easy. So it makes all the difference in the world.
Well, yes, and maybe you can be the one being the teacher preacher here. It's great to get the microchip, doesn't hurt the pet, but a lot of people forget to register, correct?
Either they don't register the chip, so it ends up going back to like the local shelter.
Yeah.
When you're trying to trace the owner, or they move or their number changes and they don't keep it current. So it's important to just put it on your calendar once a year. Make sure all the microchip information is up to date. Just like you would with anything else that was important in your life where you needed people to contact you.
I like that. So how can people help? I mean, I would love to fly out to Maui, cost prohibitive right now, but what are some things people can do in person and elsewhere to help neighborhood cats impacted by this wildfire in Lahaina?
Well, we're very much partnering with the Maui Humane Society. And in fact, our work in the disaster zone is under the Maui Humane Society.
Okay.
So they're really a crucial lead agency for the overall we're there for the trapping and the feeding and direct contact with the cats, but they're responsible for the sheltering and the placement and the raising the provisions. So there's a number of ways people can help. You can go to mauihumanesociety.org and click on their wish list and donate food. We go through probably 100 pounds a day feeding these guys. There's also you can obviously give a monetary donation, but they have a very interesting program at Maui Humane Society where if somebody adopts a cat from them, they will fly the cat to you at no cost.
Really?
Yeah. And they'll do all the they're experts at this. They'll do all the logistics, and they will now you can come to Maui and go home with a cat, or they can fly a kitty to you.
Years ago, remember, it was all a situation with rabies and other things. So what is the policy now on the islands of Hawaii for getting a pet or animal to one of the islands or getting one of them off the island to the mainland?
Well, there's no rabies in Hawaii. So getting animals into Hawaii is pretty long process. It takes several months where you have to get a couple of rabies shots and then get titers and get all the paperwork from your veterinarian. It's a process for sure. But flying cats out of Hawaii, because there's no rabies here, is a much easier process.
When you say titers, you're telling people it's just another, like a blood test to verify that the animal go on a big vacation with you has no signs of rabies.
Right, that the antibodies are at the proper level and that the vaccines have taken effect, basically. So easy to take cats out, hard to bring them in.
Well, did you and Susan, your wife / executive director, we don't know which one is your top position because, we don't know. I'm teasing. Did you bring some cats to the island when you moved?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we
How
brought
did that
all of
go?
them. It went much better than we could have hoped. I mean, it was definitely nerve-wracking. Getting them all on the right kind of carriers and then arranging transportation to the airport. And then they had to switch planes. But there are logistics companies based here in Hawaii that take care of everything for you.
Nice.
They schedule the planes. They have people there to make sure the transfers go smoothly. So it's really kind of this door-to-door service that they have. And you have to do your part, which is, all the medical and stuff like that. But in the end, I mean, our guys had to fly it turned out to be like 26 hours between all the transfers and the delays and the time change and all that. And we had a 19-year-old blind kitty, little black and white guy named Paisano. And we were most worried about how's this going to work? How's he going to deal with this? Right. And when we got to the cargo terminal and picked up all the carriers and we opened his door, and he just came out and he was just pissed off.
He didn't get to fly first class. You didn't give him any cookies. He didn't get any cookies.
Exactly. He's like, what was that?
Grumpy old man. Grumpy old man.
Yeah, but otherwise he was fine. So they took excellent care of him.
What are some things, if I may ask you, Mr. Former attorney, well, once an attorney, always an attorney, and working with video production, what are a couple things that cats have done for you to make you a better human, Mr. Bryan Kortis?
Well, cats, they have just as deep an emotional life. And if you don't define intelligence as what you're good at, which is what people do, right? So people are very good at algebra or so we do IQ tests to see how good we are at, and then we define that as
or Wordle. Come on, let's do the Wordle. Yeah.
Right. So, but if you look at its intelligence as unique to, like, each animal has their own unique intelligence, and so cats are much more sensitive to movement or to I think they're more emotionally sensitive to people. They pick up things very quickly. Obviously, their sight and their hearing and their sense of smell is far, far superior to ours. So kind of learning that and respecting that they are just as intelligent as we are in their own way has been real eye-opening. It's good to be humble as a person and not think that, not define the greatest thing in the universe as yourself and realize that we're all kind of different forms of life. So just getting to know cats and learning to respect that. And then also, it's like they get rid of their baggage pretty quickly if you give them time and space. Like I've had very traumatized cats and then just let them stay in the closet for a week. And then they come out and they're fine.
Well, I don't want to lock you in a closet for a week and make you feel better. But there is a lesson in that because we get all, yeah. So how has that helped you address things like wildfires in Maui and other challenges?
You do what a cat does. You deal with the moment. You deal with what's in front of you. You do what you can, and then you move on to the next day. It doesn't become an accumulation of, I should have done that, or I should have done that. It's like, what can I do now? What can I do tomorrow?
Well, I don't know if you know, but I have the most active safety cat, I'm going to say, in the world. And he hails from the San Diego Humane Society. He is a shelter alum. I call him alums. And hang on.
I think we're going to get a firsthand look here. Oh, wow.
I want you
That's a big boy.
to meet pet safety cat Casey. He's a certified therapy cat. And for those on YouTube, he's a ginger boy who has never met a stranger or a strange place. He's been to 15 states, and he wants to tell you Bryan, I want to thank you on behalf of all felines for helping the cats in Maui.
He's adorable.
Have you been thanked by a cat before?
Never on a podcast.
Well, he has a big heart, and he knows that you're doing good things for other felines. So I just wanted you to know, even the cats are thanking you, Bryan.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure to be able to work with them. So.
All right. So we got to make sure people go to where to find out how they can help. Give us some of the links.
Go to MauiHumaneSociety.org, or you can go to neighborhoodcats.org.
Well, at this time, I want to thank my very special guest, Bryan Kortis of Neighborhood Cats. Thank you again, Bryan, for being on the show. I want to reach out and give a shout out to my producer, Mark Winter. He is the executive producer of Pet Life Radio, the longest running pet radio network on the planet. And humbly, you are all tuned in to the longest running pet podcast on the planet. And we've been on the air since 2007, and we're still kids, right, Mark? Hey, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Easy, Arden Moore. And I want you all to take care of your cats. See what you can do to help out the cats in Maui and elsewhere. And until next time, this is your flea-free host, Arden Moore, delivering just 2 words to all you 2, 3, and 4-leggers out there. Oh, behave.
Coast to coast and around the world, it's Oh Behave with Arden Moore. Find out why cats and dogs do the things they do, and get the latest buzz from wagging tongues and tails in Rin Tin Tinseltown. From famous pet experts and best-selling authors to television and movie stars, you'll get great tail-wagging pet tips and have a fur-flying fun time. All Behave with America's pet edutainer, Arden Moore. Every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.